This cheeky little car is a Hyundai i10, and if you're thinking about buying one of these, well, you've clicked on the right video because I'm about to take you through all the common problems, show you everything that tends to go wrong, so you can go out there and buy the best example possible. Let's go. Let's start things with a little specification overview, shall we? So you can get the S, the SE, or the Premium. Now for all the difference it's making in terms of price on the used market, I would just plump that little bit extra and get the Premium because it's got features in it that we've kind of come to expect as part of everyday cars. Things like alloy wheels, Bluetooth, a better stereo, even a very swish leather steering wheel. We are racing these rain clouds. Look, they're coming in, so I'm trying to do this as quick as I can, and then we can get in the car and take it a drive. You could also get something known as the winter pack. This was only possible on the premium models, but it gave you some very uncity-like features like heated seats, even a heated steering wheel. So engine-wise, you are spoiled. You've got the choice of a 1 litre or a 1.2. Now, understandably, that 1.2 has got a little bit more power to it, a little bit more guts. The 1 litre here is 66 brake horsepower and the 1.2 is 86 brake horsepower. Now, the really good news about both of these engines is neither of them rely on a timing belt. It's timing chains in both of them, so that means no time-consuming, costly change required in a few years' time. Look at this for typical Scottish summertime. If we look this way, it looks like I'm about to get rained off. If we look this way, we might as well be in Spain. It is kind of dawning on me at this point how much it looks like we've broken down. In fact, I wonder if anyone will actually stop on this lonely road to make sure we're all right. The irony that we're here talking about car problems and we don't actually have any. So one thing you want to be real careful of if you're thinking about buying a manual one of these is with the clutch. They could suffer quite badly from clutch judder, bad enough that a group of owners actually teamed up together and made Hyundai do something about it. They termed it as a characteristic of the car, but honestly, they drove really bad stuttering when you were taken away from still. So make sure that's not the case on the one you're buying. What did Hyundai do? Well, they eventually gave in and fitted a modified i20 clutch to cure it. Is he going to stop? No, he's not. Now, while we're on the topic of gearboxes, it's well worth mentioning you could also get these i10s with an automatic. It was barely cutting-edge technology for the 90s. It was a 4-speed torque converter, but there isn't a whole lot of options when it comes to the city car category if you need an automatic, so it's pretty good that they've done it. Now, one thing to bear in mind, however, is you could not specify cruise control on an automatic i10. Who knows why they've done that? I think you'd probably want cruise control on your automatic more than a manual. It's the way it is. Next up is a problem that was super common, but before we get to it, do me a favour and hit that subscribe button if you're getting value from this video. Also hit the like button because that's how YouTube works nowadays and it allows other prospective buyers to see this video and learn all the same faults that you're learning. Anyway, that super common problem was to do with the headlights. What would happen is from inside the cabin, owners realised they could hear a bit of an electrical whirring servo type noise and they figured, oh well, it must just be the auto levelling headlights. Only problem is a lot of these i10s didn't actually have self-levelling headlights. So what was it? It was faulty motors in the headlight. Let me tell you more. So what we have here is the manual headlight adjuster. Now this problem that I'm referring to tends not to happen if that adjuster is set to 0. So if you're viewing a car and that's at 0, change it off of it and listen out for that servo noise of the faulty headlight levelers. Hit the brakes on this problem. Why are the rear brakes sticking on? That'd be a really good question for any i10 owner. So this was a problem that Hyundai actually admitted to and put right. And what it was is in the rear brake pads, they used too much iron compound. So it caused the discs to stick to the pads like glue. So sometimes what you would get is as you set off, first thing in the morning, say when the car's sat for a while, the disc is stuck to the pad and it would make a banging noise as you set off. Not very pleasant. Now on the bodywork front, you're going to want to check the i10 that you're buying quite carefully because a few owners have reported tiny little clusters of specks of rust on certain body panels, particularly the front and the boot lid. Double check it's not the case on the one you're buying, and there's a car coming down the road, so I'm going to need to move my camera. So this paint issue is quite akin to what you would see if someone hadn't prepped a panel carefully. See, I wasn't lying. And you get those little imperfections in the paint that can turn to rust. Now, Hyundai do give these a 10-year anti-rust warranty, but even if they warrant it, it's not the kind of thing you want to be putting your car into the garage every 6 months to get repaired. Now the other area of bodywork you want to be careful about is on these rear doors, particularly around this weather strip. There's been quite a number of owners that have had corrosion start along this seam. Hyundai takes the car in, resprays it, but then it just ends up coming back. That's why they've replaced so many of these rear doors. Next, we're on the move with this little nugget of information, and you're going to thank me for this one. If I pull this back seat down, naturally we've got the mechanism that locks the seat in place, and we've got the little hook that it locks onto. Now the issue is, when this is up, try and get that seatbelt out of the way, and locked in place, this seat can sometimes rattle about, that one too, but they can sometimes rattle about. Now this has driven countless owners of i10s absolutely nuts, so consider this your fair warning. If you do buy one of these cars and you're pulling your hair out, there you go. So on the interior front, these things are holding up really quite well. They all came with aircon as standard, so make sure that's working on the one that you're buying. Window switches could sometimes go bad, so make sure that they all work, front and rear. Handbrake cables, super common for stretching on these. So on that test drive, stop on an incline, whack that handbrake on and see if the car holds. If it doesn't, negotiate that into the bargain. Either get them to adjust it for you, or save a little bit of money off the deal and go to a garage and get them to adjust it. Right, time to get this little puppy out on the road, I think. So clearly, it's not night time, which means I can't comment directly on what the headlights are like in my own opinion. However, the pretty unanimous verdict from i10 owners is the headlights are pretty poor on these. Now one thing you can do to try and combat that is go off to Halfords. This isn't a paid ad for Halfords or anything, by the way. You can go other places and get yourself some uprated bulbs. That tends to help things quite a lot. I've done that in the past when headlights haven't been very good. We're currently being overtaken, and that brings me very neatly onto my next topic, the performance and what it's like to drive. Okay, so what I'm going to say here probably isn't what you expect, but this car is an absolute hoot to drive. Now it's fine, it's comfortable, it's easy enough to drive, but I didn't expect it to be fun to drive, and it really is. The car that I can liken it to most of all is the old Ford Kas. If any of you ever drove them, the kind of weird bubbly shaped one, I really like those cars, and this car reminds me of it. Something about the lightness, the directness of the steering, and also that really peppy little 3-cylinder engine that just, you might hear it here, tries really hard, but you're not going to be winning any races, and you're probably going to get overtaken quite a lot, as I've just seen. Now, one thing that I always try and do is avoid car reviews of cars that I'm about to drive. I think it can make you a bit biased and also inform your opinion a bit more than you'd like it to, even without realising. But there was one thing that I've seen time and time again whenever I was doing research on these cars, and it was that the brakes were really, really grabby. In other words, you hit that pedal, there was nothing, then you were stopping really suddenly. And honestly, it's just not the case. I don't know if it's just this car or it's that new pad compound or something's going on, but the brakes are really good. They're really responsive, but also really progressive and easy to judge as well. So I don't know, maybe Hyundai made a change. This is a 2018 car. Maybe the earlier ones are different. Any owners, if you wouldn't mind, comment below on whether you've found that to be the case. Weird. There are two negative points about the driving experience that I would highlight about this car to anyone that's thinking about buying one. And genuinely, I really do like this little car, but here are the things that you probably want to be aware of. Now, number one wouldn't necessarily be a problem. It's more to do with the type of car that this is. And it's to do with the clutch pedal. It's just a lot heavier than what you would expect it to be like. Now again, that's maybe because of that i10 clutch judder problem. This has been the replacement and it's therefore somewhat compromised. It's maybe not what the car would have originally had, but it's definitely heavier than you would expect a car of this type to have. So why is that a problem then? Well, these kind of cars can typically be bought by older drivers or could be purchased through mobility schemes, for example, and therefore a lot of strength to operate some of the controls isn't necessarily a good thing. Now, it's not super heavy, don't get me wrong, it's not like a Lamborghini Gallardo or anything like that, but it's certainly heavier than what you would expect. So I would urge you to check that out before you put a deposit down on one of these cars. Now, the second thing that I would put down as a negative about this i10 driving experience is tyre noise. Not necessarily wind noise, that's fine, but tyre noise is really quite loud, to the point that I was reading on the forum that some owners have actually stripped out bits of the carpet and added extra insulation in. You just shouldn't need to do that on a modern car. Again, I get that as a city car, you're maybe not going to spend an awful lot of time on the motorway, but it's definitely, again, louder than what I would have expected. Now, one of the final things that I want to tell you about, and it's really quite important for me to tell this because I've been asked to, and it's a story that I was told very recently about a woman, an older lady who purchased an i10. Now, she loved the car, didn't realise there was any kind of problem with it until her son drove it and realised that it was crunching every time that it was going into reverse. Now, that problem was just left. It wasn't causing hindrance to the car. It could still get put into reverse and she could still park into her space. But as tends to be the case with issues like that, that crunch got worse and worse and worse, almost to the point where it wouldn't go into reverse anymore. She then took the car to Hyundai, who charged her £600 to strip it down and work out what had happened to it. Now, nothing against Hyundai, of course, they need to get paid for carrying out repairs, but to the second-hand car dealer that sold the car that was a bit dodgy and then didn't want to hear about the problem, shame on you, really. And that's why I make these videos, to stop people like her getting caught out when they go out and buy cars. So please, 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 on that test drive, pull up as you're going along and try putting the car into reverse. Do it when the car's hot, do it when the car's cold, and also pay attention to the forward gears as well, particularly first to second. The synchro can wear on them as well. And there you have it. You now have all the tips you need to go off and find yourself a brilliant i10, and you should. They're really good little cars despite these problems. But how do we score it on a reliability leaderboard? Well, you'll notice that all of these problems, maybe Gearbox aside, although it's not that common an issue, that Gearbox one, none of them are showstopper issues, and by that I mean none of them are going to leave you stranded at the side of the road. Well, yeah, sure, you might get a little speck or two of rust in your paint, or the back brakes might stick on if it's got some of those old pads in there, but nothing is really all that serious, and it's for that reason that we score the little i10 a 7.5 out of 10. Maybe we'll revisit it in a couple of years' time once they get a little bit older, but for now, it is a good buy. Now, thank you so much for watching. Please do hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and we'll see you for the next video.